Recording is on.
Okay, right. So the recording has started. So thank you everyone for being here. This is a little bit different from our usual sessions. This is something that we would like to do from time to time, though, and it's basically a bit of a Q&A session. This one is more geared towards kind of general developer questions and maybe how you get into it and things like that. Anyway, I will stop talking for a moment. For anybody who hasn't been introduced to Piero, this is Piero.
Good morning, everyone.
As you will know, he is one of our teachers. And it's also his birthday as well. So for anyone who hasn't said happy birthday to Piero,
thank you so much.
Please do put your happy birthdays in the chat. And anyway, without further ado, Piero.
Thank you so much, Sunil. Good morning, guys. My name is Piero. I'm 22 years old today. So thank you, everybody, for your birthday wishes. And I couldn't be any happier to spend my first lesson on my birthday. This is actually a gift for me. And when it comes to what you will do with me, I will be your JavaScript, Node.js teacher, plus some personal branding and interview preparation. So we will have a lot of fun together, starting from today. This is just one of many types of lessons that won't just be, a code editor or just somebody speaking, because since you're many teachers and there's so many ideas to do cool stuff with you. So, we might do interviews, we might do dual lessons like we're doing today. So this is just the beginning of a lot of fun things we can do together. Now, the purpose of this lesson for you is, when you're coding, when you're learning to code, you always have to have a good direction to take when learning. So since me and Sunil have been doing this before you, we thought that maybe discussing some topics and letting you ask us some questions would be a great idea, because maybe now you might feel discouraged or you might feel like burned out from all the things that you have to study. So we can try to help and understand, we have been doing this before you, so we can really help in that sense. So that's the point of this lesson. We will go through some questions that the community asked us on Twitter, on the Code Questions official channel we have in the Discord community chat, and then we also created a couple of questions more to answer for you, so we can really give you an overview. And one last thing to add before we start is when it comes to my career, I've been for 4 years a professional developer. I'm a full stack web developer. I work with React.js, HTML, CSS, GraphQL, and Node. So that's a pretty good stack. It's pretty modern, and I'm very happy to do that. And I work for a company building a product for cloud management of Wi-Fi networks, which is called Tanazza. And I'm based in Milan. So just quick introduction on my life for you. And when you want, Sunil, we can start.
Okay, so we will begin with the questions that were posed by you, the Stackademic squad, our students. The first question we received was, how many hours a day did you use to study to become a developer? Or better yet, how many hours per day did you study? So Piero, would you like to answer that first?
Okay, so the question is, how many hours a day did you study to become a developer? And what you're gonna know is this might vary on every person, because maybe you have a job or maybe you're studying computer science. When it comes to me in Italy, I did a school, like a high school, which was very centered on computer science, because here you can choose what you're going to study during those 5 years of high school. I don't know how that is organized in your country. And so I was actually studying coding every day for 5 years. And I was doing that for about 2 or 3 hours a day, because we started really from the basics. What is a computer? What is the binary code? And the thing I would like to add is, don't be discouraged if maybe you're doing this just for, like, you've been doing this for just 1 month and I've been doing that for 5 years, because really my learning curve went from this to this when I got my first job. It was all like exercises and coding like that. So don't be discouraged in that sense. And also, everyone has its own time. I just wish you knew how much time I wasted because I didn't know how to study coding. So, and also that's why we're here today for you.
Cool. I think we will mention as well. One of the questions that we received later on is kind of what mistakes did we make as we were learning. So I think that's definitely a place where we can talk a bit more about that as well.
Yeah, sure.
From my perspective, my journey into coding probably started around about 5 or 6 years ago, but was a little bit different to Piero's in the sense that I was self-taught and was transitioning from a different career. So at that point, I was working in management in a company, but I wanted to make a change. During that period, I probably was learning. I was probably studying for about 5 or 6 hours every day, and that was alongside a full-time job that I had. This is not to say that everybody should be doing this kind of thing, and I certainly experienced some burnout during that period, and kind of threw away any sort of social life that I had during that period of time. But from my perspective, this was just something that I kind of forced myself to do. I had a target of getting a job as a developer within maybe 12 to 18 months. And I kind of treated that period of time as I will do whatever I need to get to that point. So I was probably studying maybe about 35 to 40 hours per week. But that's, like I said, that's not feasible for everyone. If your journey cannot accommodate something like that, then that's fine. Just know that it might take you a little bit longer. But I made a lot of mistakes during that, which is what we will talk about in a little while. Okay, so Piero, would you like to ask the second question?
Sure. The second question is, and this is something I can pretty much relate to. Did you ever experience tutorial hell? And if so, how did you come out of it? Do you want to answer this one first?
Okay. Yes, definitely. Tutorial hell in the sense of I would just watch a lot of them, or maybe I would have 10 or 15 tabs open with different tutorials on YouTube, or maybe I would try to maybe I'd buy a bunch of courses off Udemy, or do slightly worse things such as download them with torrents. not that I approve of that.
I didn't know this possibility existed.
Well, I probably should not have mentioned it then. But yes, I definitely did experience that. But what I have found is that nowadays I will only maybe watch a tutorial on the odd occasion, because I know now that the way to come out of it is to actually just build things. At least for me, rather than following a tutorial that tells me how to build something, and I end up building that exact thing, I found it's more productive for me to just have an idea for something I want to build, and then I will just try to build that. Maybe I will supplement that by watching a tutorial from time to time or reading an article, only if the purpose of that article or tutorial is to help me build whatever it is that I'm building, if that makes sense. So what about yourself, Piero?
Tutorial hell has probably been the biggest error I did in my career when learning to code. It's something I still fight with, in my career. And I really think that to get out of it, you just have to understand two common misconceptions behind learning, especially behind learning to code. The first one is, I will be a pro in this language when I'll be done with this course. You can take all the courses on Udemy you want, but you'll never be a pro programmer in something. You may be really good, let's say with JavaScript, but the thing is just when you go to work with the language, what it really means to be a pro, because in a course, you're kind of in a protected environment, let's say. You don't have deadlines. You're not working with code pushed by other developers. And so it's just quite different. And also, you're not seeing certain problems that arise in real world, because every project is different. You just have, let's say, an example prepared for you, and the author says, okay, this is the best practice. But it's hard to find the best practice in the real world, And the second misconception about learning is that motivation and, let's say that thinking about something and then doing that is always the linear process to create something. But that's not always the case, because sometimes too much thinking makes lets you become, let's say, worried, and maybe you can procrastinate what you want to do because you say, am I good enough? Do I need to take another course? So sometimes action has to come before you think. So my words for you are, if you want to get out of tutorial L, just have your own ideas and don't take another course. Just open VS Code and start writing them down, and just create even the scaffolding for a new project. Just do something. Action will then bring and lead to motivation. So that's what I encourage you to do. Just make the first step. I share with you guys in the community chat a book that I created, to be honest, in 2 days, but I've been thinking about that for 3 months. The only thing that I needed to do was just write the first sentence. But the other months, I was just, oh my God, am I good enough? Should I write this? These kind of thoughts were blocking me. So take action, even the smallest step, and everything will come, if that makes sense to you.
Well, I agree. I think that's a really good point as well. That say with the book that you wrote, that you just started doing it rather than maybe reading a bunch of guides on how to write something. That helps, of course, but you just need to start doing it. So that's good. I just wanted to confirm with everyone as well before I carry on. So does the screen change when okay, so Hafiz has all the tiles on the screen. I can see both at the same time, connected via tablet. Okay.
I think it changes on people preferences or devices.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I have no idea how this recording will turn out, but whatever. Okay, that's fine. So the next question, Piero, was, and a few people have asked this, is it really necessary to know about data structures and general computer science, even if you're going for a front-end role?
Okay. Do you want me to go first?
Yes, go for it.
Okay. To be honest, in 4 years of experience, never in my life I had to implement like a linked list or a binary search. It was just not necessary. Most of the problems that arise when working with React are just not that. Maybe I think a colleague of mine implemented a binary search once. However, as I mentioned already in also some of my articles, the coding process, it's kind of broken. And so sometimes interviewers want to know also this stuff, even if they're not particularly related to what you will go to do in your daily job. So just to conclude on this point, I think that data structure algorithms are good to know because you're a developer. So even if you're a front-end developer, so study them. And also because you will need them in the interview, because that's the reality of nowadays in the industry. Just know that probably you won't have to use them, for front-end roles.
Cool. And then I guess from my perspective with this, so I don't think it's necessary if you want to just, if your purpose is to just find a job, and let's say you're working at an agency and maybe you're building some kind of websites for maybe local companies and things like that. I think you can easily find a job without the need of ever spending much time on data structures and kind of general computer science terms. I know this from experience because the the first 3 jobs I had, I didn't really have much of a background in computer science and data structures and algorithms. The first 2 jobs, it was fine. I was building these kind of fairly simple things, although one of them did involve kind of building a social network. But in terms of the amount of users, we're maybe talking about in the thousands rather than, say, Facebook, which is in the billions. So in that regard, I didn't really need to know these things too much. But then when I went into my 3rd job, and I was working as the job title was senior software engineer, I found that there was a necessity for me to have an understanding of data structures, algorithms, big O, how to do things efficiently, because the other engineers I was working with were doing those things. So I had to know that I had to know these things at a good enough level. But as Piero has quite rightly pointed out as well, that the interview process is broken somewhat because there are some jobs that want you to know this information, but you may not even necessarily need to use that information on the job. I would say it can depend on where you see your future in terms of kind of programming, development, engineering, and so on. In the beginning, I would say I don't think you need to focus too much on that stuff. If, say, you are in the process of learning JavaScript and CSS and HTML, but certainly if you have a real passion for this, then you will want to know that you will want to know more about data structures, algorithms, and computer science anyway. So I would say it's kind of, you don't need to know these things, but if you really want to, then you will explore those areas anyway. Okay,
let's go with the next question. And this is probably the source of thousands of articles, The question is, did you ever fight against imposter syndrome? And how did you get over it?
Okay,
very nice question.
Yeah, and it's one of those questions that even though we could talk about it for half an hour, there'll still be lots of questions about it afterwards.
I feel like it's something very personal, something kind of related to the emotion of people, and how they relate with challenges.
Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it as well. Yes, I had imposter syndrome for the first 9 months of my first developer job. In certain occasions in the second developer job, even though I was the sole developer there. And then I certainly had it in the 3rd job when I was working with engineers who came from CS backgrounds and had like a master's in artificial intelligence and things like that. And when you're having conversations with those people, when they're talking to you about very complex computer sciencey algorithm things, then it can mess with your head a little bit and make you feel, or make you question whether you even belong in the conversation to begin with. It's really difficult in that regard, and I don't think you can ever truly get over it. But once you can actually understand that, then that helps to make it easier, because I think that you always have to know that there are people who know more about things than you. And this is not just in programming. This just transcends all professions. The only problem is developers talk about it more. Like, programmers love to talk about it more. And maybe a lot of that comes from the fact that there are so many self-taught developers. So you've got people who are not going through traditional academic routes to get to these professions. If you're a lawyer or a doctor, for example, and you go through those traditional routes, it might be a possibility that you don't suffer from imposter syndrome as much, because you don't get self-taught lawyers, you don't get self-taught doctors. for a good thing. That's good as well. I don't think anyone would want a self-taught doctor.
Luckily, you got a Udemy course.
Yeah, yeah. How to do open heart surgery.
How to become a doctor.
Yeah. But just know that people in those professions still have imposter syndrome. So it's just part and parcel of life, and you kind of have to be willing to accept it. But the more you build, the better you will feel, and you will notice your own growth, which I think can definitely go some way to reducing how strong that imposter syndrome feels. Okay, that was me. So
somebody wrote in the chat, Udemy cardiology. Ibrahim from zero to heart surgeon. That is great.
Ibrahim's on fire today.
Okay, so it's really weird for me to talk about imposter syndrome because it feels to me like I'm talking about people emotions, So let me tell you a personal story. The company I'm currently working for right now skipped the interview process with me. Let me tell you more about it. That was because, sometimes companies hire an intermediary, like a middleman, to find people to work for them. And that was the case for me. But this middleman didn't know that at the time of joining the company, I only had 2 years of experience and not 6 as they were requesting. However, I did the interview with them. They liked me and they said, we can free up a place for a junior developer in the team. However, I had to do like some challenges, when I was already hired, I had a trial time, They said, we want to see how you behave in these 3 months. And after that, we will decide if we want to keep you. Now, you can just imagine how I was feeling at the time, because I said, okay, I don't want to be jobless. They invested so much in me. I skipped the interview process. Do I really deserve to be here right now? And I feel that the imposter syndrome comes out of the feeling, the need to know that you're good enough. It's something like very emotional. I gotta feel like I need to know that I'm good enough. But how do you do that? Well, you have to put yourself in a position not of a victim, because you don't have to think, oh my God, maybe they will fire me. They will discover I'm not good enough. Just ask yourself what you need. And if you need, at that point for me, I said to myself, okay, I need to prove them that I'm good enough. How do I prove that to them? And then I started writing down some things that I could do, and they were very practical. Like I could check my code, 1,000 times before opening a pull request. I could concentrate more on my job. I could spend a couple hours more every day, to improve. And I did those things. And as soon as I started writing them down, I wasn't a victim anymore of imposter syndrome. It was just a feeling that arose in me. And then I said, okay, I need to do this, this, and this to fight against this syndrome, And I don't know if that was clear to you, Sunil, if that makes sense.
No, I think it does.
And actually, I overcame that challenge, and I'm still working for this company. So, just put yourself in a position of power. Ask yourself what you need and how to reach the goal to get what you need. So if you need to feel good enough and you need to prove to somebody that you're good to have the job, do it. Or if you need that you're worthy of, or that enough, just challenge yourself.
Cool. Okay, so the next question we have is good studying methods. So, Piero, what would you say to that?
Well, this is strictly related to some other questions that people asked. It's very general and vague as a question, like what do you mean with studying methods? But let's say that in general, if you need to reach a goal, for example, like learning a new programming language, if you want to learn a new programming language or some new technology, I will say that first, get an introduction to the syntax of the language you're working for or the technology, the dictionary of words that you will have to use. So, maybe you're learning JavaScript. So try out the syntax, what a const variable is, what let is, what an if statement is. And from the first moment, make your learning project-based. So, build little things, always build little things. And once you gain more mastery, you can, build something that is bigger. And there's also like quite of a pyramid. It's called the Bloom's pyramid, that describes how people learn things. Because when you study something more, then you will be able to criticize what you've done, and you will able to find better solution. It's kind of like what seniority means. So I will just say, like, do little stuff and in a project-based way. And second, be constant. Please be constant when you do something. If you can study coding every day because you want to get a job, do that every day, because that's how you reach a goal. You show up every day and you work to it. Even just 1 hour, 2 hours, but be there, even when you don't feel like.
Cool.
There are a lot of things you won't feel like doing in life. So, but coding is worth it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're not enjoying doing this, then it's certainly going to make it more difficult for you. I mean, one thing I found, at least in the beginning, is that there was something in me that I made me know that I wanted to pursue this, but I certainly did not find I did not have much passion in the sense of I did not have much passion because I didn't know much at the time. So I did find it really difficult to kind of stay motivated in that regard. But in terms of studying methods, there is this kind of this person came up with something called the Palito Principle, and I won't go into it in too much detail, but it's the idea that you can kind of do 80% of something with 20% of knowledge. So what that kind of means in this regard is that there are some fundamentals to most things in life that will allow you to do the bulk or the majority of the things that you actually want to do. So if we think of, say, if we take something like JavaScript, for example, then there are certainly some fundamental concepts that you will need to wrap your head around and know well, but it will allow you to be able to do most of the things that you want to do. The reason why I highlight this is because I think when we try to learn something new, and we try to learn something new without any sort of framework, fortunately, none of you will have to experience that because we are providing a framework for you. But when you are trying to do this, you end up trying to just learn everything in the textbook or whatever it is that you're looking at, the reference guide or the course. Whereas some of that you won't need often. And it kind of goes back a little bit to whether you need to know data structures and algorithms and computer science terms. Yes, some of that you may help you, but will you be doing that day to day on your job? Probably not. So it's kind of, do you need to spend much time on those things? So I would say there are some fundamentals that you need to learn, and learn them well. Don't just learn it a little bit and move on. So hopefully that kind of gives one approach to a good studying method. Okay, so
do you want to read the next question?
I will indeed. So, Piero, okay, how do you maintain the habit of coding daily? I'm currently in an intense administrative job, which takes up a lot of time, and balancing between my day job and coding gets extremely stressful at times. Would love your points of view and how you started out and persevered.
Well, as mentioned before, I started out because it was like school, because I was studying that. So coding every day was kind of my it was my homework. So I had to do it. And when it comes to coding now, I do that for a living, so I'm coding every day. But I understand your question, because your question is, if you have other things to do because life gets in the middle, how do you manage to learn something new? Well, we are all humans, and I think that sometimes you're tired, sometimes you're angry or you're mad, you had a bad day, and you don't really feel like doing something. And that's okay, that's human. But really, as I said before, consistency is key when when it comes to learning to code or something new. So if you really want to learn this skill, my idea for you is just look at your everyday, like your calendar, and set up a time where you can focus, on doing this, even if it's just for 1 hour. When the human side, is preventing you from doing that, just remove it. I'm not saying become something non-human. I'm just saying, like, say, okay, every day at this time I'm doing this, remove the emotions and other stuff. Just say, okay, at this time, whatever it is, I'm coding, because you got to remove the how you feel variable, because that's actually how you do it. It's really impossible to obtain everything in life if you just don't feel like doing it that day. It's something that you have to do if you want to get to the goal. It's something that I experiment every day with everything in my life. I want to do that. I know that this is the time to do that every day. I write on Medium, for example, and right now I'm setting up a time where I spend writing every day. I have my job. Sometimes I don't feel like writing, but I know that I have to do it if I want to succeed as a writer. So I take the human part out and I say, okay, this is the time to do it.
Cool. Just to add a little bit onto that then. So from my perspective, and I think I touched on this a little bit earlier with the one of the earlier questions, but I was working a full-time job, and I still found time to study. Now, this is always going to be different for everybody, because my full-time job is going to be different from somebody else's full-time job. The variables that I go through outside of work will be different to the variables that you go through outside of work. You may have dependents. You might have children. You may have just other duties that you need to attend to outside of work. Sometimes life gets in the way, and things may happen that kind of take you off of the path that you were going through. But nevertheless, trying to establish some form of routine outside of work is going to help you a lot. So whether it is just putting aside even just half an hour or 1 hour a day, or every other day at the very least, to some form of study, will go a long way. And during this whole process, there will certainly be times where you won't want to do it, and you have to ask yourself this question, and it's how much do you want this? And I guess to follow on from that, I mean, is this bettering you as a person? If you're just studying because you like studying, or you just want to learn something to do with coding, then that's absolutely fine. That's cool. But if there is something motivating it, something more motivating it, such as you wanting to change your career, find a new path, then hopefully these are the things that will motivate you to maintain that habit. Now, I mean, Piero and myself, we've been doing this for several years now, and for us, we probably don't have to think too much about how we maintain the habit, because it is a habit now. But in the beginning, you have to force yourself to do it. It's just the same as starting a gym routine or some form of fitness routine. In the beginning, you hate doing it. You feel strange. Your body feels strange. You ache afterwards. And it's the same kind of thing. But once you've done it a few times and you start to gain these little victories, like something new you've learned and it feels amazing. It's the same thing as going to the gym or whatever. It's just coding.
Yeah, and also remember that humans have a great ability to, get used to things. So when you will be used to, say, okay, at this time of the day I'm coding, it will be a lot easier during time. But you just can't say, I don't feel like, because otherwise you're not going to reach the goal. And that's for basically everything you're doing, whether you're writing the next Stephen King, kind of like a romance or something like that. I guess he didn't say. I didn't feel like.
Did Stephen King write romance novels?
No, I don't know how to oral romance, oral novels. Yeah, I thought that romance
yes,
is close to the word in Italian romanzo. So I got confused.
Of course.
Yeah, as Ibrahim is saying, Stephen King made it a habit to write 10 pages a day.
Well, there you go. So why didn't we change that to 10 lines of code?
I would go even with like a little bit more, because 10 are
10 lines is, that's not really that much sometimes.
It's just HTML, body, head. I'm done for the day. Okay, so if you agree, I'll read the second question. Okay, this is a very tough question, and it is, I have the option to go back to university and get a bachelor's degree in computer science. Would you find this option to be a good investment of time, knowing that I plan to have a long future in tech and that the program is extremely inexpensive? Do you want to go first? Okay, this is really the toughest question we received because there are also some things that are not specified from the order of the question.
I will try to go. Okay, so is it a good investment to go back to university and study? And you've also said that you have a long career ahead of you, and you've also said it's extremely inexpensive. I'm guessing that's what you mean. It's cheap. It's very cheap for you to do this. So, okay.
It depends by so many things, I guess. Like, how old are you to get in tech? And do you have any other opportunities to learn to code? And, it's some details were not provided in this question, so it's really hard to say.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's I don't know how much experience you have at the moment. If you're working already and everything's fine, then it's, is it a good investment of time as well? Because it's not just the cost; it's the amount of time you'll be spending doing this.
The person, it's Ibrahim, I guess, asked this question. Because he said 23 years old going to 24.
Perfect. Okay. So, I mean, look, I'll just try to give my experience with going through this feeling, because I think that's maybe a way for me to answer it that is subjective to myself, but it doesn't mean it's right for you. So after that third job where I was expected to kind of have a good understanding of data structures, algorithms, computer science terms, and things like that, I did think to myself, should I go back to university and maybe do a master's in some form of computer science? For me, in the UK, it would have cost about £10,000, which, if we look at the current rate in dollars, is about $14,000. In euros, it's probably about 11,500 or something like that. Either way, I think that's a lot of money. So that was a factor in it, but it would have gotten in the way of my career as well. So someone who was already working, had my own business, was doing well. Did I want to spend a year out learning something that I felt I could pick up some of the fundamentals through just online learning and things like that? Ultimately, I said no, I just continued to do what I was doing. So I didn't go to university, or go back to university, I should say. But it's a difficult question to answer, really. It feels more like something where I personally would find it easy to answer if I was just chatting with you, Ibrahim, for maybe 10 or 15 minutes to understand more about your situation. So maybe I cannot give you a specific answer right now. Maybe Piero can do a better job, though.
Well, I will say, Ibrahim, that you can always contact us in private if you want to give us more details, because right now we can have that big exchange of informations, but it really, as mentioned, it really depends on your position right now. For example, let me turn the lights on. Yeah, I didn't go to college. To be honest, in Italy, it's not that expensive. You have also public colleges. Maybe you can spend $4,000 every year for university. But despite my parents' best efforts, to be honest, I couldn't have afforded it. And I didn't go to college, but I really didn't want to go there because I felt like I want to learn to code. I learned to do that in high school, and I want to improve by myself. And then I want to get experience in the field, To be honest, I never regretted the choice. I'm very happy with what I did. So I will tell you to go. I mean, if you can learn to code and you want to be a web developer, just maybe continue, of course, continue with academic, learn by yourself. Maybe you want to seek out for other resources, but I would say no. So for now, to go to college. And one last thing I would like to add is maybe you want to go to college if you want to have a very niche, specialization in some fields of computer science. Maybe you want to work with artificial intelligence, So maybe you have to go there because you have to learn something particular, or you want to be an autonomous car programmer. So you might want to go there. Or for example, cybersecurity, that's a big thing to have it. And also it depends on your country, because in Italy it wasn't that necessary to have it, but I know that in some other cultures, for example in the USA, it's almost mandatory, to have a college degree. I mean, we have Chris in the chat. Feel free to tell me if I'm wrong or not, because from what I understood, it's almost very important to go to college, there.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. The geographic aspect of that does make a difference, or the cultural aspect, I should say, because and even say, at least my understanding of what I've heard from in Italy, it's kind of you can't call yourself an engineer if you haven't been you haven't studied computer science.
No, but you can easily find a job as a developer if you know your craft, So that's the case. I have a good job and I didn't go to college.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so I've kind of merged two questions into one here.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with procrastination, and do you have a routine for improving yourself?
Sure. Okay, I will go first, if you agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
How do I deal with procrastination? This is a question that is strictly connected to what we said earlier. It's that I deal with procrastination by just taking action. So, when I want to reach a certain goal, okay, I will try to understand what I need to reach the goal, but then I will take action immediately, because I know that if I think too much about it, then I will start to be worried. I will start to doubt myself. So take the smallest step possible. So if you have to start a project for your portfolio, create the folder, write down the first HTML part. If you have to write an article, write down the first 2 lines of it, or even just the title, and then other steps will come. And if I have a routine to improve myself, I guess that's related to being a developer. Luckily, I do that as my job, so I'm always improving. Yet I'm constantly trying to work on tasks that I'm unsure how to complete, because I kind of get out of my comfort zone and so I can learn more. So I'm constantly seeking out discomfort while working. And then I just have my own routine for writing and learning new stuff outside of my job. So I always have like a next step to do, a next step to take, a next goal. So maybe I'm coding in React every day, but in the night I'm studying a little bit of Python because I'm curious about that. So have a routine and always take action.
Cool. How do I deal with procrastination? Well, I mean, a lot of this is going to depend on your own environment and the kind of barriers that you're putting up. Because for the most part, if somebody's procrastinating, it's because of the mindset that you're in, or the kind of the issues that you're putting up. So one thing I would say for that, or two things I would say, is try to reduce interference. So I'm not sure of the age of the person asking the question, but for example, if I was sat at my on the sofa and I was coding, but I also have the TV on, I also have a PlayStation or an Xbox or something like that that I can see. Maybe I've got my phone nearby. Maybe I'm checking social media, things like that. These are all things that are just interfering, and it's maybe you need to put yourself in a different room, or if that's not possible, maybe you need to just put those things somewhere else. So giving yourself the right environment to be able to focus on something will help.
This reminds me of a quote I had from a movie. I thought it was the Green Book, something like that. It's a movie that won an Oscar where two guys are in a car, and it's like, when you're doing something, just do that something. When you're eating, just eat. And when you're coding, really just code, because I found it that the silliest error you can do are if you're being distracted while coding. It's a very egoistic action because it takes all of your mind, and focus.
Yeah, absolutely. One other thing I would say for that as well is try to remove competing thoughts. So things that are trying to get your attention, and I don't mean it just with those physical things as well. So I kind of touched on this question in a previous Q&A session that we did, and it was to do with like, how do you manage to focus when there are so many things that you want to learn or do? And about 3 or 4 months ago, I had no less than 15 projects that I was trying to get up and running. Various things, whether it's a website or an application or a SaaS service or whatever. But I had too many things in my head, and it led to procrastination because I wasn't being productive enough with any of those. So I had to remove some of those, and it meant sitting down, spending some time going through each of these ideas and thinking to myself, okay, well, how likely is it that I can actually complete this task? How motivated am I by this task? How valuable will people find the outcome of this task? And I had to just kind of rate these or mark these out of 5. Once I did that, I quickly realized that there were maybe 2 or 3 that I really wanted to do. And then there were about 7 or 8 that I just didn't really care so much about. Maybe it was an idea I had 6 months ago, but I was just holding on to it because I thought it must be $1 million idea, when really it wasn't. So kind of be okay and willing to just drop ideas and drop things, because it's going to help clear some of that fog in your mind. And it may help to refocus you on 1 or 2 things that I personally found it helped me get rid of that procrastination, and ended up building mobile applications, like 2 or 3 apps within the space of about a month, because it helped me become hyper focused. So yeah, that was my approach. Okay, so yep.
We still got a lot of questions. We may want to merge some of them.
Okay. Yes. Well,
Okay, I will read the next one, and that is how to deal with nerves during the interview. So, okay, so you gotta know that I changed 3 employers in my career. Now I'm currently at the third one, and the first experience that I had in coding was in a consultancy company. It was something terrible, to be honest, because in the consultancy world, basically you have to go to other teams, in town and help them with their projects. And you're basically changing things like every month or every 2 months, because it's kind of like a company is renting you, as a professional. It wasn't really good. And but the thing is, I was having so many interviews, to do before doing that, because a company wants to know you before, let's say, buying your help. And two advices I can have for you is, first of all, something always feels scarier than it is if you've never done it, or if you don't do that usually. you know it's like going on with a parachute. Maybe somebody does that every week and it's not that big of a deal, and but maybe somebody else does that once a year. And so if you I'm sure that once you will start to have a lot of interviews to find your first job, the amount of pressure you will have will be a lot lower than to begin. That is what happened to me. And second, realize that nothing bad is going to happen to you. The worst thing that can happen to you is that you don't go on to the next step. And so just comfort yourself when you're there. Just stay calm. And so if you feel like you need to know, oh my god, will I do it, and will they appreciate my professional figure, or still put yourself not in the position of a victim, but say to yourself, okay, if I want to do it, what is it that I have to do? And the answer to that is, I gotta keep calm. I gotta show them exactly what I studied, and I gotta showcase my best, the best image I have of myself. So just comfort yourself and be present for yourself when times of pressure will come.
Cool. I would just add a very short answer to that. So preparation. So have an understanding of what the interview process is going to be. So make sure you're prepared for that. And secondly, don't be afraid to ask questions before the interview. In other words, if there is someone from HR or whoever it is that you're communicating with before, by email, by phone, or whatever, don't be afraid to ask them questions to better understand what the interview process is at that company, if the company hasn't already made that clear. I went to an interview once where I was not expecting a technical interview in that moment. I knew it was going to happen, but I did not expect it to be in that moment, because the person in HR didn't tell me there was going to be a technical interview. And as a result of that, I was kind of surprised when it happened. And that was because I wasn't prepared and because I didn't ask the right questions beforehand. So it's something I could have avoided by asking rather than just assuming. Okay, so we've still got quite a few questions. Piero, how are you for time at the moment? Because it's your birthday.
I still have half an hour if you want to go with that. But I have merged some questions, so we can, because, sometimes the same doubt arises, with many questions, but we can still go on. And then, if people want to catch up, they will have the YouTube lessons. So, we can go on with the next question, which is, do you have any advice concerning learning frameworks? Learn and stick to one or several? Learn and follow the trends? And what do you plan to learn in 2021? So for me, always focus on one thing, stick to that. So right now, my advice for you is learning React, especially because if you want to find a job, in the web development world, job applications are exploding with React. I also had some experience with Angular, but I really haven't heard it in a while. It kind of seemed like it died to me, because I haven't touched it in so much. And I also tried to have fun with Vue, and when it comes to, focus on one thing And when it comes to what I plan to learn in 2021, well, I'm really having fun with the stack I'm working for because it's very modern. I plan to become really good with React, and I plan to go deeper with GraphQL because I'm sure it will explode more and a lot of companies are asking for it now. So that might be the future of applications.
Cool. So any advice concerning learning frameworks? I would say, I just echo what Piero has said. And I would not learn any frameworks or languages if you haven't already learned the kind of thing that underpins it to begin with. So in the case of, say, a lot of these frameworks, it's JavaScript. So it would be a little bit foolish to just try and say learn React without having learned JavaScript. And that's, of course, why we will teach you JavaScript first and then go into React.
Yeah, of course, always go first with the foundations. If you know JavaScript really well, which is my target for you, to teach it as best as I can to you, you will learn React a lot faster. React is just JavaScript and, like JSX, which is like syntactic sugar. But, most of the things that you will see are just React concept, like a hook integrates a closure and things like that. But a closure is just plain JavaScript. So, be focused. So somebody asked a really fun question. If we should buy an Xbox without having a TV already.
It's like, yeah, exactly, Hafiz. It's like that. And
I thought you asked that question. I thought it was really a joke.
And just a little bit to follow on from that. I mean, so I saw a question earlier today that someone tagged me in about whether you should learn as a newbie developer and being new to CSS, should you learn Bootstrap or Tailwind? And my answer is you should learn neither of those. You should learn CSS, get good at it, and then if you want, you can learn one of these frameworks, because if you learn the framework first, then you don't understand what it's doing for you, and that's the wrong way around to learn something. It's like following these tutorials. It's just, okay, well, this is a ready-made solution and I'm following it, but I don't understand what any of it does. And also kind of like a question Hafiz asked before about copying and pasting code. It's like, if you don't understand what that code's doing in the slightest, then it doesn't benefit you in any way. It may make something work, but you haven't learned anything.
Yeah, also please realize that when you see job applications with 10 things requested, okay, some of them are actually trash because they don't know what they're talking about. But just realize that if a company sees that you know JavaScript really well, and maybe you have worked with React, but they're using Angular or Vue, if they see that you have really strong foundations in JavaScript, and then you have the attitude to learn something new, it won't be a problem, for them to hire you, because you have what it takes to learn something. You can't always know everything, but if you have the attitude of, I can do that, I can grasp this skill, and I have the foundations to do that, it's, you're problem free.
Cool. And
okay, so we have the next question. Do you want to go first with this? I will read it for you if you want.
Sure. Okay. So the question is, what skills are considered the most important to work in technology? Wow. Okay. I can see why you wanted me to go first. So that's such a broad question. I mean, are we talking about hard skills? In other words, the technical aspects of the job, or soft skills? So the kind of, the behavioral aspects, which, if you go to an interview at any decent company, they're going to test you on both of those things. I'm not going to talk about the soft skills for the moment. Maybe Piero, you might want to touch on that. I'm not sure, but you have to know whatever the language is that you're trying to apply for. It's such a broad question. I find it a little bit difficult to answer. Would you like to try?
I think it's actually quite, oh, sorry, there's a dog in the house barking. Sorry for the noise. What I wanted to say is that actually I think that this is pretty much related to soft skills, because okay, uh, because when people will test your skills, they want to know whether you're good. They want to know if you're good with technology, and also what kind of attitude you have, because you can be the best JavaScript React developer in this world, but really if you're a pain to work with, that's not something very good. And also, as a person who has been a junior developer, the thing is, you won't always you at the beginning probably you won't have good enough skills to land a job, but if you have the right attitude, a company will be willing to hire. That actually happened to me. When I landed the job in the company I'm working for, I was missing like 3 years of experience to work with them, but I had the right attitude of being curious. So these are the things that I think are the most important: being curious to learn new stuff, being available to be in a zone of discomfort, out of your comfort zone, and also being eager to learn more. You don't want just to be there and get your paycheck. You want to understand more, to do more for the company you're working for, because you really have a passion. If you really have a passion for something, it will shine. It will shine from your words. You will actually have it written here, trust me, and people will know that. So just that's the thing that I believe it's the most important thing.
Cool. Well, you definitely did a better job of answering that than me.
Thanks.
Piero, so what is the best and worst thing about working in tech?
Well, actually, now it's my turn with the difficult questions. To be honest, I'm a little bit biased here, because for me, working in tech is the perfect job, because it's a job that I have a passion for. It's a job that, unfortunately, I mean, luckily, but unfortunately for some other people, and I really feel their position now allows to be done from home. It's kind of a job that will never disappear. So it's kind of a safe job, and in these times it's very hard. So I really feel the position of people losing their jobs and things like that. So it's because of the market, and it's a safe job. This is the best part. Like, it's a safe job. It's a job that if you have a passion for, you can do a lot of things. You can learn, you can travel, because for like meetups and things like that. And I think it's overall an incredible job of creativity and challenges. If you really have this thing for solving problems and for creating systems that are working, it's so amazing. It just vibes with you. The job is just perfect for you if you're kind of that person. I can't really answer to what is the worst part about working in tech. I really enjoy everything. I would say the worst part are some things that you don't like, in your daily job, like maybe you have too many meetings or something like that. Probably I could say that the worst thing right now for me is that sometimes I feel overwhelmed by everything that I have to learn, because sometimes, yes, I even if I don't have imposter syndrome anymore, I just feel like I discover something more, and I've been doing this for like 4 years. It's so hard. So it's hard to not feel discouraged. So that's the worst thing. It proves you emotionally a lot sometimes.
Cool. So, best and worst thing. So, for me, working in tech feels like a superpower. So I like the fact that I can have an idea, and in a short space of time, that idea can exist and become something that anybody around the world can use. Stackademic is a good example of that. I had the idea in January, and 2 or 3 weeks later, people were signing up to use it. So in that regard, for me, it feels like having a superpower of being able to take something from nothing and turn it into something that anyone can use. Worst thing is, I would say it's It's not a particularly social job. It can be if you're maybe working in a big team with a lot of people and you're having meetings and things like that. But there will be occasions where maybe you are just sat there coding for several hours, maybe for several days, maybe for several weeks. I found that in the jobs I've had, even though I would be sat next to people, we would all have our headphones in, we would just be coding for several hours. If I can compare that with some of the jobs I've had where maybe I've worked in retail or in an office or whatever, and I'm constantly talking with people, there's that aspect is something that I don't have when I work in tech. So if you're a very social person, you might find that it kind of hinders you in that regard. Okay, so I'm just going to answer this question really quickly, Piero, with a one-word answer, and maybe we can just skip it afterwards. The question is it possible to integrate artificial intelligence when creating JavaScript apps?
I think you can with TensorFlow, some libraries like that.
Well, I mean, I was just going to say yes. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
You can do that.
I'm not really skilled in artificial intelligence, to be honest, but I'm sure you can. So, and I trust you, Sunil.
Okay, so Piero, how do you approach a project? Do you design first or code first?
Well, I actually design first when working on a project, but sometimes because when you design, you can understand, what you have to do, what will be the structure of the project that you're going to build. But sometimes let's say designing and coding part are very related together in the initial phases of the project, because sometimes you will have to do little prototypes, of things you want to build, on a smaller scale, so you can understand some kind of problems that might arise in the future. So the answer is, before implementing a task, a feature in my job or when I'm coding in general, I design it. I try to write a smaller scale of the task, and then, I go for the full thing. How about you?
If it can sometimes depend on what I'm building, but if we take something like a web application or something, then I will be designing first, and there'll be several phases to that. So there'll be the wireframing. Maybe even before that, I'm just doing some sketches on a piece of paper. But then, there will be 2 or 3 phases of that before I actually get it to a point where I like the way it looks. And then I will start to code it. Now, if you're doing code properly, which not all of us will do from time to time, then you should be writing tests as well before writing the code, which could be considered a part of the design.
Yes, because you're kind of designing how the component will have to behave, or the entity you're writing. That's right.
Yeah, so it's kind of, we could take the term design and use it in more than one way. But look, I mean, that's not always going to happen. Sometimes if you're building a basic website, you might not do that.
I would also like to add something on the question that was asked us related to the worst part and best part of coding, because I forgot to say it. And it's also related to a comment that a person gave us on Twitter. And that is, one of the worst parts is also that physically, this job is very demanding. Please don't think that just because you're sitting, you're not demanding something from your body. Sitting is actually harmful, because you're staying like that for 8-9 hours. And I mean, unless you sleep like standing, you're going to sit for also many other hours of the day. Think when you take the bus or when you're home, on the couch. So please take some initiatives to protect your health, protect your eyes, protect your back, from ergonomically. And because, for example, sometimes I had to get back massages, to release pressure. And I'm very young, so you can just imagine how demanding that can be from you.
That's a really good point as well. Fun fact: standing, if you're standing, you lose on average 50 calories more per hour just standing as opposed to sitting. So
some people even said sitting is the new smoking. I'm not going to go scientifically on that, but it's harmful. Trust me, it's really harmful.
Right. Okay. So Piero, would you like to ask this question?
The one related to HTML, right?
HTML. I am not sure which question you're referring to. In the chat or?
Oh, in the chat? No, I'm
No.
talking
No.
about the document.
Okay, I've got the next question. I'll just ask the next question I can see here then. Yeah. So it's how do you deal with information overload on the internet to solving problems?
Okay. Do you want to go first on this? Because I'm very curious on how you will answer to that.
Sure.
The document wasn't updated for me, sorry.
Okay. So for information overload, I would only rely on what I would consider to be trusted resources. So if I want to learn a specific JavaScript concept, for example, I could just Google that concept, but of course, as you know, you're going to get thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of answers. You don't know how well they're written or whatever. So I might just use a trusted resource such as MDN, which I know is going to give me a well thought out, detailed response. So things like that I would do. And then of course, you've got some people who have really good YouTube channels that you could look at for certain questions and things like that. Like for example, there's a YouTube channel that doesn't really exist anymore, but it's called Fun Function by a guy called MPJ, and his content is great in terms of just good approaches to things, like good experiences, just so much stuff. So it might be that I look at those resources first to see if they've answered the question before. So have a good collection of resources that you trust, and just use them and block out all of the other crap.
I will just say I agree with you. It's so hard to manage information overload. One thing I would like to say is try to reduce the scope of things you have to know to do something, because if you have to accomplish a task, just try to understand what you need to do to complete the task, Try to reduce the amount without going to, without going to other satellites, informations that you might encounter, so try to reduce the scope of what you gotta know, always move on a very thin line when it comes to know that. So for example, if you gotta know how to write a function, just check the docs or check Stack Overflow, but don't lose yourself in an article writing about the perfect structure to integrate this function or things like that, or you're going to feel very discouraged very soon.
Yeah, that's a really good point as well, that there'll be a lot of content, especially when you're learning. There will be a lot of content out there that it has no regard for your current skill level. It's not, sometimes things are written for advanced people only, and that can feel overwhelming in itself. And you have to understand that and kind of be aware that that's the case and not feel bad about it, and just find another resource. Okay, so the next question we have, Piero, which is the final one by the looks of it, is what do you think, do you think low code, I guess, / no code platforms are going to be the future of software development?
I'm not really skilled in low code platforms, to be honest. I was reading a book these days called Clean Code by Robert Martin, and he was saying something about platforms that, and the future is like the job of being a developer bulletproof. And will these platforms, replace developers? My answer to you is no, because first of all, somebody has to write these things, and second, a level of customization in an application is so big, that it's literally impossible to instruct a machine to, accomplish a task that otherwise would be done by a human. So for me, low-code platforms are really going to be long-lived in this world.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think you mentioned this as well at the start. I can't remember, but ultimately somebody has to build those platforms as well. So
Yes.
the kind of so it's like the role of a developer or programmer is always going to exist. It just may take on slightly different forms from time to time as we
unless the platforms built by themselves, and in that case you have magic. So don't sell platform, just sell magic somewhere.
Right. So I've just noticed one more question come in, but
I think we should answer one last question, which I think is related to the errors we did while becoming a developer.
Yeah, no, of course. And then anybody else who has future questions, just keep posting them, and we can do this again another time. So
sure, we can store them, and answer them, and then we can have so you will have kind of a recording of, or like a record, of all the questions. And so if you agree, I will go with this last question.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is very broad, and it is, what are some errors you did in your path to become a professional developer? Did you have any misconception about coding, or maybe learn things in the wrong way?
Misconceptions about coding. Maybe the misconception I gave myself was that I thought it was too difficult. I thought I wouldn't be able to do it. And it certainly felt like that in the beginning. It felt like it was too difficult. So there is that aspect. I could say I overestimated how difficult the job would be. But that's not to say that there aren't difficult things to it, because of course there are. It's just there's a lot of it that can be learned in a short space of time. In terms of an error I made on my path, I think in the beginning I spent far too much time trying to take shortcuts. The first shortcut I tried to take was I tried to learn Ruby on Rails at the time, which is we're talking about maybe 2014, 2015. And it was kind of fairly prominent at that time. And I was trying to learn it, even though I didn't really have a good grasp of the basics. So JavaScript, even say HTML and CSS really. And I was just trying to figure out how to build like a big social network as the first thing I was trying to build. So that was my mistake. I was trying to take shortcuts because I felt like I was trying to compete with my age, with everyone else already doing this, trying to compete with people who had a formal computer science background. And what you realize after a while is that you're only competing with yourself. And when you do that, then you can learn to take patience with yourself and learn things properly. So shortcuts don't really get you anywhere when it comes to trying to learn something as a profession.
Okay, so when it comes to me, I think that all the mistakes I did in my career, and while learning how to code, were coming from a single source, and that source was the need for perfection. When I started to code, I wish I had academic, to be honest, because I didn't have anything organized for me, people who could tell me how to do that job. I mean, I had my school, but they wouldn't follow you in the afternoon. So, it was pretty much, whatever you want to do, or better, however you want to do it. And I had this need for perfection because I said, okay, when I will perfectly know this language, I will be able to land a job. When I will perfectly know this, I will be able to apply for that company. Or, well, I will perfectly write without any errors, then I will be a senior developer. Please realize that as a developer, you are always walking on a thin line of things that you know and that you don't know. And you're walking on that thin line every day. So please don't rely on perfection. Just rely on your own ability and self-confidence that you can learn anything from scratch and that you can master anything or find the solution to any problem with your, with this skill, your self-confidence, with your abilities. This is, let's say, the polar star that I think you should follow in your career. Maybe I don't know this, but I know that I can learn it. I don't know how to build this project, but I know that I can do it. Don't strive for perfection. Even now that I've been doing this for 4 years, I don't know so many things. I think I gain a level of seniority, but there isn't a day where I'm just, coding smoothly. For example, like, okay, I will do everything and everything will be perfect. So just don't strive for perfection. Strive for relying on your abilities.
Yeah, that's a good way to kind of wrap this up as well. Done is better than perfect.
Yes, and I never found a perfect programmer, to be honest. So
there you go. Exactly. Okay, so we're getting close to 1.5 hours, and we do have a few more questions, but it's probably best if we just save them for the next time we do this. So
very nice lesson, and I hope you enjoyed, guys. And we could do this like other times, as mentioned, because during your path to become a developer, I feel like other questions might arise. So it will be a good idea to show up again for such a type of lesson. And I'm seeing that Sunil wants to sing Happy Birthday.
Well, I think if anybody is confident enough to unmute yourself, then we should wish Piero happy birthday.
Just say happy birthday. I'm super shy when it comes to my birthday, to be honest. It's like, when you're shy and everybody's
Happy birthday, Piero. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Piero.
Happy birthday.
Happy
Happy
birthday
birthday
to
to
Piero.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you so much.
Hey.
Welcome.
Thank you so much, guys. It was actually, yesterday when I wrote that it was going to be my birthday, Sunil asked me, do you really want to have the lesson on your birthday? And my answer was immediately yes. And I was actually very happy that I had the occasion to introduce myself to you today, because it really made the day perfect and a beautiful day. I'm very happy to have this introduction with you and to get to know you better and possibly help you. So thank you so much for your birthday wishes, wherever you are, and sending you prayers.
Hyvää syntymäpäivää. It's in Finnish. I am from Finland, so I'm saying it to you in Finnish. Hyvää syntymäpäivää.
Thank you.
Weird, but it is how it is in Finnish.
In Italian, and Sunil will know because he's in Italy, it's buon compleanno.
Sì.
Okay.
Buon compleanno, tanti auguri.
Thank you so much.
Sí, señor.
Hafiz, you are funny.
That's quite Spanish. I don't know, señor. But
Okay, sorry.
and I also love that some of you wrote my name with 2 R's. It's something very common that happens when people call me in a foreign language, It's actually Piero with 1 R, but also Piero, it's perfect, don't worry. It's my alias. I become Piero when I'm a academic teacher.
Oh, va bene. Okay, so thank you, everyone. And then if you all can kindly just leave the chat so that the recording will stop.